Does the alternative energy plan that needs to happen, does that get derailed by $60 oil?
Yes, we have a choice as governments, citizens, energy industry. Either we are going to live in a planet which has almost nothing to do with the planet we used to know, or we are going to change how we produce and use energy. So we have to make more use of clean energy technologies, ranging from solar, wind, hydrogen, electric cars, nuclear energy, and we have to reduce the share of fossil fuels in our energy consumption if we are serious to address our climate problem.
Dr. Birol, how big a turning point was the pandemic in this process? How big a catalyst will it be for change? Do you think we ever get back to 2019 levels of demand for crude?
I think if the governments do not change their policies, oil demand will go back where it was before the crisis. I have been saying this since March last year. Yes, global oil demand went down significantly, but it went down because of the lockdowns, because of the global economy is declining. It didn't go down because of new technologies replacing oil. With the economy rebounding, pandemic being under control, we will see global oil demand will be there where it was before the crisis, unless governments do not put new energy policies in place, such as, for example, giving a big incentive for electric cars. Now, if you want to see how the world, oil world, would look like after the pandemic, there is one live example: China. China is the country that got out of the pandemic first. Economy is rebounding, and as we speak now, Chinese oil demand is higher than before the pandemic, before the crisis. It rebounded substantially. So, no government policies, no new government policies, no change in the oil demand trajectory, especially the peak oil issue, which is discussed heavily nowadays, in my view, is a bit of a pipe dream unless governments put new policies in place and new technologies are introduced.
How quickly does that have to happen? Many shops like Goldman Sachs are tightening their commodity outlook because of what Saudi Arabia did last week, unilaterally cutting production for 2 months, and many now expecting higher prices, supply difficulties. No way governments are going to move faster than the Saudis.
I don't think that the clean energy transitions will happen in a few months or even in a few years. It's a long process, but it will happen. There is no way out of this. There will be no company, energy company, no oil-producing country that will not be affected from the clean energy transitions. Yes, we will still need oil this year, we will need oil next year, but we will need oil less and less in the future. And the countries whose economies are relying on the oil and gas revenues are becoming more and more vulnerable to clean energy transitions and introduction of new energy technologies as a result of less oil to export and lots of fluctuations in the oil prices. So they better reform their economies, broaden the base of their economies, and do not face major economic and maybe social problems as a result of clean energy transitions.
Dr. Birol, can I talk about what is happening right here and now? What we do need right now is LNG cargoes, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, particularly in Asia. The polar vortex is causing super cold weather, and we're seeing LNG cargoes trading hands for record prices. Are you worried about what is happening right here, right now?
Definitely so, because not only the prices of LNG prices are very high, at the same time, some of the countries in that part of the world are facing energy availability, security challenges, and therefore, with the very cold winter and some of the shut-ins, some of the production, different parts of the world, some of the exporting countries lead to this problem. But I do expect with the temperatures getting milder and some of the shut-in production is going to be fixed, the situation will normalize in the next days or weeks to come.
Fatih, do you think that LNG and natural gas, how big of a part will they play in the energy transition? A few years ago, they were the bridge fuel, and now they've really gotten lumped in some ways with oil.
So we will need natural gas for several years to come. We will use natural gas several years to come. But it is very important that the gas producers, first of all, need to minimize, if not nullify, the leakage of methane to the atmosphere. In addition to carbon dioxide, methane emissions are very strong, very powerful greenhouse gases, and this can be done. If the companies are not greedy, they can fix these problems and they can minimize or nullify this leakage. This is number one. Number two, they have to, those companies have to find the more environment-friendly use of natural gas, such as mixing with hydrogen or using carbon capture and saturation technologies. So gas has a future, but gas industry needs to be part of the solution here.
Okay, fair point. So where does this leave U.S. shale? And specifically, when you see oil at 55, 60, they're saying they're not going to increase production a lot. They're saying they're going to be good and pay down debt. What do you think the reality is going to be on the ground right now?
I think with these prices, what we are talking about, the $50 and above, a big chunk of the U.S. shale is definitely profitable. And there are two issues here that they will be able to increase the production, and I think many of them will be able to do so. And the second issue is whether or not there will be a strong enough demand in the United States and around the world looking for those supplies. Yes, for this year, maybe for the next year as well. But those companies also need to have a longer-term perspective and to think that they have to soon see that the share of oil in the global energy mix will decline. It will not be like before, a steady increase of oil demand around the world as a result of increasing share of electric cars, electric vehicles, I should say, because lots of buses are coming. And I think they shouldn't underestimate the electrification of the transportation sector. But for this year, for next year, we will need shale oil from the United States to fill the gap.